Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Go up him and somebody can take the harmonium away. I'm actually sitting a little bit with the back to the deities. I think I have just a little bit there, but just sideways. Yes. Om Agyantimanasya Gyanandala Shalakaya Chakshunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sthapanam Yenubuddhale Swayam Rupakaramayam Danati Swavadantikam Namam Vishnubhara Krishna Pista Buddhale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Prachayane Nivashisha Shunivari Pasatara Satarine Manchakapa Trivisa Kripa Sanvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everybody to our second session on the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. So I can see we have a few new faces joining us. Is it the very first time that you're here? Okay. Or the three of you, but you don't know each other? No. Okay. Well, I'm just a visitor. I am leaving tomorrow. I spent 1 week here. And yes, we have yesterday and today like a little seminar, if you want. So it is on that particular topic. So I simply hope that you will be able to capture something. Did you know that this was a program on this topic, or are you just coming in by chance? Or huh? Okay. Just to hear what's happening here. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. And what about you two? Okay, but you were here before, or you know somebody here, or no? Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, on Sundays we have like an open day program, you know, where new people come and there's also a nice meal you get. So we had that last Sunday. Yes, but yeah, so a special welcome to you. We are always happy when people show some interest in our philosophy and lifestyle and all that. And I guess the false ego, or the ego, I do believe even people who don't know anything about us Hare Krishnas, they have some idea that this is a constant companion and troublemaker. And by the way, I have also published a few books, and one book has exactly that title. So these two sessions, it's just a little introduction into the whole topic, which you can get as a book also, you know. Yes. Yes. So let me just quickly refresh our memories for those who were here yesterday, and just to update you what we discussed yesterday. So we were introducing the whole topic of the false ego, basically saying that false ego means we think ourselves to be something which we are actually not. So there is the false ego, and there's also the real ego. So the real ego means we understand our eternal position of being servant. We always serve somebody. Our body, you know, we serve somebody, our body, and other people's bodies or other personalities, you know, family, parents, boss at work, our senses, so many entities we are serving. So we can't escape it. And ultimately, we are the servant of the Supreme Lord, of Krishna, how we call him. So yes, but we think ourselves to be something which we are not. We think we are the center of the universe, and we are so special and unique and extraordinary. And we are the supreme enjoyer, and everything is meant for our interest and convenience and so on, and enjoyment. And we think we are the controller, and everything belongs to us. So, and not only that, we identify with the body. We think we are American man, German woman, Indian man, whatever it may be. And then we accept so many designations, which are like roles we are playing in life. You know, we all play so many roles, but unfortunately, we identify with them. We have roles like we are wearing hats at different occasions. We may have different hats. So, yes, but usually we don't identify with the hats, but with these roles we identify basically because they give us a certain sense enjoyment, some certain gratification of thinking ourselves to be of importance. They give us some little recognition. And that's exactly what the false ego is hankering for, this gratification of being important and getting some recognition and so on. And then we were also yesterday discussing one verse of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna basically gives us two choices in life, that we can either act in consciousness of him, meaning as humble servant, and then we can overcome all the difficulties and challenges of material life. Or, second choice, we act under the false ego, with that false ego motivation of wanting to become this and that and achieve things. And then Krishna predicts that we will be lost if we act under the false ego. And then we were also discussing a few other little details around it all. So, and to the yesterday's discussion, I do want to add one more little aspect, which we didn't mention yesterday, and then we will move on to the actual topic of today's session. So, one interesting thing to understand is that the false ego has two ways of affecting us, two main ways. So the more common way is that we think ourselves so extraordinary and special, and we are overconfident, and there's some pride there. Yes, I can do it. I'm cool, and so on. But then there is also another effect, which we very commonly, we don't identify as being an effect of the false ego. And that is when we feel all insecure and mental, and we have complexes. Interestingly, this also comes from the false ego. And it is so because the false ego demands that we look really cool and successful and special, but according to our capacities, we may not be able to live up to, the demands which the false ego makes. So, and as a result, we get all insecure and mental because we can't come up to that level which the false ego would like us to be at. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So, for example, you're welcome to sit on the chair that may be a little more comfortable. You can decide. Good. Yes. So let us look at a little practical example. Let's say we are not so good in singing. Not everybody has a voice to sing. And in old age, the voice also gets a little croaky. And that's also a humbling journey. especially if you've been using it intensely for so many years. So yes, let us imagine we are not such a good singer, but we wish we could sing as nicely as so many other devotees around us sing. So, then, the false ego may demand that gratification of being a good singer, but we can't live up to it because we don't have the material abilities. So, and as a result of that, we may get all mental and insecure and, oh, everybody is a good singer except me. I'm just hopeless. And, oh my God. And we feel all, we feel like we are nothing and so on, But then actually, when we remember that Krishna is not even so interested in the external result, but he's actually interested in the bhakti and the love and devotion with which we offer a service. So we may not be such a good singer, but we may sing with devotion. And actually for Krishna, this is so much more pleasing. Whereas the person who has the fantastic voice and the musical abilities may be singing in a proud mood, just trying to show off. And there may not be so much love and devotion in his heart when he sings. So and Krishna is actually not very impressed with such an offering, So when we see our inability of singing nicely with a spiritual mindset, then we actually will not care so much, and we will just say, well, too bad. That's all I can do. So kindly tolerate it. And we sing with devotion. And we will feel fully satisfied, knowing deep in the heart that Krishna actually welcomes our offering, even if it may not, from a material point of view, be so pleasing or something, Yeah, so really depending how we see things, in such a situation. If it is with a mundane mindset, we get all mental and insecure. But if it is with a spiritual mindset, we know the devotion is what counts. But especially these days in the modern, material life, it's all around false ego, it's all the externals count. Nobody gives so much attention to the internals because they don't satisfy the false egos as much as the externals, But yeah, as spiritualists, we should understand Krishna looks at the internals. He's not so impressed just with the external offering, especially if it is offered with pride, with pride and arrogance, then he actually hardly even accepts it. Yeah, so I simply wanted to add that to our discussion yesterday. So today, I would like to, or shall we ask for questions? Shall we just ask, see if there's just one little question? You mentioned you had some watching online yesterday. Okay, let's hear it.
Hare Krishna. So yesterday at the beginning of your lecture, you spoke about before you started, delving into really the topic of the false ego. You had spoken about how devotees need to be humble and tolerant in order to receive the full benefit of the mantra, and in order to be able to overcome that false ego. I was wondering, what can a devotee do to become more tolerant and more humble if they don't feel like they are tolerant and humble enough?
Actually, I think in the today's session, you will find the answer. Yes. Basically, we can say, to dissolve the false ego, there is two main tracks on which the, Goloka Vrindavan Express, if you want, moves forward. So one is the chanting of the Mahamantra. But it's not everything. Parallel to that, we have to implement we have to cultivate a service mood according to Vaishnava etiquette and culture. So Vaishnava etiquette and culture is designed to help us to become more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Whereas materialistic culture is doing the opposite. It's all designed to feed and boost the false ego, actually, As we mentioned yesterday, spiritual life, material life, they are as opposite as day is from night. Material life is all about showing off, being the center of the universe, promoting ourselves, taking every opportunity to feed and boost our false egos and promote how great we are. That's the path to success out there. I mean, due to internet, you can say any fool can become world famous overnight, just by posting some crazy pictures or statements on internet, and boom, you get most of the viewers and likes and all this, the more crazy, the more people will click it, basically. Yes. And people are going for it, Oh my God. Yes. 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 So that's material life. Whereas spiritual life is really targeting the opposite goal, that we become very humble. We realize our tiny, insignificant position in this world, Yes. And that we are simply a humble servant of the servant of the servant, like that. Yeah, so let us move on to today's discussion. So today, I'd like to touch upon one very important aspect of our spiritual culture and etiquette, which we should be following, but so often we don't even know about them. Or we may know them, but we still don't follow them, especially here in the Western world, So because our false ego is so near and dear to us, that's why we like to protect it. Yes, we like to protect it and defend it. Yes. So we may know the four principles of animal life, as we say. This is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And as Bhakti yoga practitioners, we try to keep these four principles to a minimum: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So we talk a lot about eating, sleeping, and mating, but we don't talk so much about defending. And in this connection, we mean verbal defense. So actually, it is one rule of etiquette that we are not meant to defend ourselves. A devotee is meant to defend others when we see them unfairly treated, but we should never defend ourselves. Because when we defend ourselves, what do? We actually defend the false ego, right? Yes. And we do it almost every day. Yes, yes. I mean, it's almost like Krishna is throwing all these opportunities in our way, to actually give us a chance to dissolve and subdue the false ego. But usually we do the opposite. We defend and protect it all the time, every day. But actually it wasn't like that. It wasn't me, like that. Isn't it? Yes. Oh, yes. Especially married life, family life gives so many opportunities, to either defend and protect the false ego, or if we take the opportunities to dissolve and subdue them, Oh, yes. I mean, family life can be a battlefield of false egos. Who is right? Who is wrong? Just see, I told you, didn't I? And why didn't you do it like I said? And remember, it was my idea. And, all these exchanges go on. And you can really spoil your relationships completely, just engaging in these ego battles, And because I give these seminars all around the place, all around the world almost, often people come with their marriage problems to me for private advice, And often people say, I don't know why we are arguing over the stupid little petty things, which are not even really important, But yes, I know why we are arguing, because of the false ego, And this pushing of the false ego is so strong that we sometimes can't even control, we can't even bite our tongue and not say things, right? Yes. It's such a strong force that pushes us to say things and defend and answer back and want to have the last word, So strong. That urge is so strong. I remember once I was giving the seminar in Mayapur in India, and usually I spend about 2.5 hours on this very topic. So we were just discussing it for 2.5 hours. And then after the lecture, I spoke to some young devotee privately. I can't even remember what the topic was, but the amazing thing was he immediately defended. He was getting all agitated. And I was saying to him, Prabhu, don't defend. Remember, we just talked about it. Don't defend, don't defend. But he was just going for it. He couldn't even hear me, Just after talking for 2 hours about the document. I was thinking, oh no, how is it possible, At least when I say it, he could have just said, oh yeah, okay, yeah, let me better be quiet or something. But no, he couldn't even hear me, He was just going for it. Yes. So this is how strong this urge is, almost uncontrollable, So there are a few very common mechanisms of defense. One of them is to blame others. How often do we do this? That we blame others? Actually, it was him. Actually, it was her. Or blaming external situations and circumstances. So why do we do this? Ultimately, to say, I'm okay. I'm all right. Nothing wrong with me. It's all the other people who are at fault. And that's why it all happened, And we have that saying, when we point one finger at others, then 3 fingers point back at ourselves. Yes, so our Vaishnav etiquette, we say. Vaishnav means, Vaishnava is those who practice this process of bhakti yoga. So Vaishnava etiquette means don't defend. Don't defend yourself. Defend others, but not yourself. And if actually everybody follows this etiquette, then there is no need to defend ourselves, right? Because surely if we are wrongly treated, somebody else will stand up for us and say, actually, it was not quite like that. And actually, the situation happened like this and this and this, So if everybody would follow this etiquette, then there is no need to actually defend ourselves, But unfortunately, we do exactly the opposite. We are very good in defending ourselves, but if somebody else is wrongly treated, we better keep quiet. We're not going to say anything because, I may damage my relationships if I say something here. And, somebody may not like it. And after all, it's none of my business anyway. So we keep quiet. We don't stand up and, stick up for that person. Yeah, so that's unfortunately what we do. We do the opposite of what we should be doing. Yes. And especially towards a person who is more experienced than we are, who we consider as senior or superior. If we defend towards such a person, it is extremely inappropriate and off. Yes. Especially when we defend towards our spiritual master, our guru. This is completely inappropriate, completely off. And really, it goes so far that even if Guru chastises us for something which we did not even do, we are not meant to defend. That's a tough one. It's a challenge for the false ego, Just imagine you get chastised for something which you didn't even do, The false ego is really rebelling. Hey, you better let them all know that it wasn't you and this is unfair. False ego crying out for justice, Oh, yes. But then to actually simply be quiet, that is a challenge for the false ego. And that's exactly how we dissolve it. That's why this Vaishnav etiquette is there. If we take such a situation to dissolve our false ego and by saying to ourselves, all right, this time I was unfairly chastised, but so many other times I did so much nonsense and nobody chastised me. So let me just embrace the situation. Let me welcome it, just to let go of my false ego's demands. Very powerful exercise to let go of the false ego, Yes. And I mean, if it is a really serious thing which Guru chastised us for, and we didn't even do it, surely if there is somebody there who follows the etiquette, they would stand up and say, oh, actually, Guru Maharaj, it was not him. It was a little different. The story was a little different or something, Yes. And they would give him the information, Yes. Yes. Actually, most of us, I'm sure we know Hari Sori Prabhu. You heard about Hari Sori Prabhu? Yes. Yes, he is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was traveling a lot with Prabhupada as his secretary. So I know him personally quite well. He was in Australia in 85 when I met the Hare Krishnas there and joined the ashram there. So, and when I put the book together, I asked him, have you got a story with Srila Prabhupada where you defended towards Srila Prabhupada? And he sent me this nice story, which I want to share with you. So Prabhupada one day asked him, give me the red folder from the cupboard, from the almirah, what we say in India, the cupboard. So Hari Sori goes to the cupboard. Prabhupada, there is no red folder. And Prabhupada repeats, give me the red folder. Hari Sori says, Prabhupada, there is no red folder. Prabhupada repeats a third time, give me the red folder. And then Hari Sori says, Prabhupada, you mean the pink folder? Prabhupada doesn't say anything. So then he goes and gives him the folder which he thinks is pink, and he gives it to Prabhupada and says, Prabhupada, it's not red, it's pink. So that's, the ultimate false ego answer. Prabhupada, you're wrong, I'm right. It's pink, not red. And Prabhupada really heavily chastised him. He actually really gave him the source, he blasted him, So now you have become very expert in defending yourself towards your spiritual master. And he was really going on for 10 minutes, Yes, so, especially towards Guru or any more experienced, more senior person, this is completely inappropriate and uncultured and actually offensive, actually. But even towards, younger and less experienced devotees, still we shouldn't defend. Actually, somebody else should defend, like when a younger person behaves inappropriately towards us and we are an authority or something, we have to be careful. We can't really say, hey, don't behave like this, because it will seem very easily that, he's just defending himself, So it is actually better if we tolerate it, but then somebody else should give the instruction and correction and say, hey, this is not how you talk to a more senior person or something, Yes. Yeah, so even towards parents, we often tend to forget this in these modern days, that actually our parents are our seniors. They are our elders. And we are meant to treat them with respect. Even if they may not share our visions and lifestyle and, of what we are doing here, but nevertheless, they are our parents, our seniors, And even in that relationship with our parents, we are not meant to defend ourselves and instruct them and correct them and have the last word and so on. This is really inappropriate, And this also took me quite a few years to realize this, actually. For quite some years, I had a bit of a tense relationship with my mother, and I did not even realize how much I was contributing to this. Because I thought, well, I'm a traveling preacher. I have to tell her what to do, what not to do, and. But she was always, very, very irritatedly, she was responding to this. And then one day I realized, and I used, and I used consciously my relationship with her to dissolve my false ego, to let her be right, even if she's wrong. Yes, good exercise for the false ego. And I was actually winning in a double sense. I had an opportunity to dissolve my false ego, and the relationship with my mother became a lot more harmonious. Yes, just by letting her be right. Because usually these things are not some life and death situations or something. And interesting to also remember, at the moment of death, who cares whether we were right or wrong, and no significance anymore, or these right, wrong things, and becomes completely unimportant. No significance any longer. So this is also a good thing to keep in mind, when we are in some agitating situations. We can make these 2 steps back and we ask ourselves, is this still important at the moment of death? And we realize, no, it's not. So on the absolute platform, these things have no significance, At that moment, the only thing that is important is actually my relationship with Krishna, with the Lord. That's eternal reality that we take with us in our next existence. But all this right-wrong business is always a matter of the false ego. So now in regards to this discussion of defending ourselves, very often the question comes up, and it may be in your minds too, but in the material world, if we don't defend, then people walk all over us, So how do we deal with this instruction not to defend? Is this only applicable in our spiritual dealings and relationships and spiritual life? Or is it applicable also in the outside world? So, and in this regard, I do want to share a little story from my own life, just to illustrate that even in dealings in the outside world, we better be very, very, very mindful. We better cautiously look at the situation to see whether it's worth it defending or maybe not. So some years ago, it's quite a few years ago, 14, 15 years ago or something, the German taxation department, I'm coming originally from Germany, the German taxation department charged me some tax which I was not meant to pay. They basically cheated me. So there was some letter going to some postal address of mine, and the letter was sitting there, and I was traveling because I'm living out of a suitcase. I'm always on the road. So, and by the time I got this letter and opened it, I missed the 3 months period where I could object to this notification that I should pay €1,500. So I missed it. So when I opened this letter, my false ego was on the ceiling there, and I was all agitated. What is this? How can they dare to charge me this ridiculous tax, which I'm not even meant to pay? And so I immediately rang the lady there at the taxation department. And of course, we almost argued with each other there on the phone. And she was just saying, well, you can take the matter to court if you like. You missed the 3 months where you could make your statement. So, you can take the matter to court if you like. So, and of course, I couldn't even stop thinking about the whole thing. It went around and around in my head. As I said yesterday, whenever we catch ourselves in such a situation where something goes around in circles and we can't drop it, and some dialogue, whatever, goes on and on and on in circles, the same story around. Always a sure sign that the false ego takes us for a ride. So, and that's what I found myself in, I could hardly even chant, do my mantra meditation anymore. I was so disturbed, so preoccupied with this whole situation, wondering what to do. So, and then, thank God, I remembered a verse and Prabhupada's explanation from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that saved me. So I want to read to you this verse and purport. So this is from 4th Canto, 19th chapter, verse number 34. So the verse says as follows: we should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. Well, I could definitely immediately experience that. How I entered the darkest regions of materialistic thought just by rectifying these reversals I was finding myself in. So then Prabhupada explains, sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential, as Krishna's arrangement, as we like to say. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals. For the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. One should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. Yes. So thank God, sometimes it's good to know the scriptures a little bit. Even though I have to admit I'm not so learned or something. That's why I'm copying these things here in my little verse book, because I can't keep them in my head. But yeah, I guess because I had copied them in my verse book, that's why I remembered. So I thought, okay, let me just not try to counteract this reversal, because I could immediately feel I was completely in anxiety. my whole spiritual life and practice was out the window. All I could think of is of what to do with this taxation department, So I just decided, all right, let me just pay it. I haven't paid that much tax in this life, so maybe I still owe them something. So let me just pay it and let it be, and let me drop the whole story and move on, Yes, but it took me a few days for the false ego to really drop it. It was first coming from the intelligence. Okay, that's the recommendation of the scripture. Let me act on it. But the false ego was still rebelling. Oh, it's not fair. You're not supposed to pay this. You could have a better way how to spend €1,500. And it was still going on there for a couple of days. But then, I just managed to drop the whole story and move on, So yes, I mean, this is maybe a little example that even in matters out there in the material world, we better think twice whether it's worth it to counteract all the reversals which we are facing, or whether we just say, okay, Krishna's arrangement, let me just, go along with it and drop the whole story and let grass grow over it. And yes, again, I was saying to myself, at the moment of death, does it matter whether I paid €1,500 tax or not? No, it doesn't. Who cares? Yes. So, in other words, in all circumstances, we have to carefully consider, is it worth it? Or am I just increasing my anxiety here and disturb my meditations and just create a more cumbersome life here for myself, Yes. Yes. There are a few other powerful statements about tolerance, because actually to become tolerant with spiritual with spiritual vision, tolerance is one of the most important qualities to cultivate, to become tolerant. Actually, tolerance is like a criteria to measure a person's spiritual strength and spiritual advancement, and how tolerant a person can be. Yeah, highly important, because tolerance is directly connected with the level of how much the false ego is dissolved and given up. Because what stops us from tolerating is nothing else but the false ego. The false ego rebels and doesn't want to tolerate. So a person who can tolerate shows that his false ego is dissolved and subdued, Yes. So tolerance, such an important quality. Whereas looking at it from a material perspective, tolerance is seen to be a weakness, right? Oh, yes. People don't think that tolerating something is glorious. No, it's seen as a weakness. Not being able to stand up for oneself and fight and defend, that's seen to be glorious, right? Yes. So often we get a little mixed up here, Again, what is success in material life may very well be the lowest in spiritual life. That's how opposite, 180 degrees opposite, material success and spiritual success is. Yes. And this quality of tolerance is a good example in that. Because yes, these days people see it to be take it to be a sign of strength, not to tolerate, to defend, to fight back, to stand up for your rights. That's seen to be success, you know. Also in married life, you know, how often do we hear this? I'm not going to tolerate that. Who am I to tolerate such nonsense? I'm going to get divorced. I'm going to walk out. You know, that's seen to be the right path. Of course, there may also be situations which we can't tolerate, you know, when it comes to abuse, you know, domestic violence, and so of course that is an exceptional situation which has to be looked at separately, you know. But as a rule, these petty little arguments, you know, we can't call them abuse or something, you know. So I'm more looking at these, you know. Yes. Yeah, so I did want to share with you a couple more statements about tolerance. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. That's tolerance. And I mean, in our scriptures, we have the examples, Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, you know, they are the embodiment of tolerance, right? Yes. So that is actually the mood we should be striving for, you know, that even though we may be defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, we are never inclined to avenge ourselves. We are meant to react with compassion, thinking, how can I uplift this person, you know, rather than thinking of revenge and giving it back to him or something, you know. That's the mundane view of things, you know. And I mean, yes, to tolerate, we may look like the loser. Even in material sense, we may look like the loser. But in a spiritual sense, we are the winner because we dissolve our false ego. Because that we have to do in order to get out of this material world. We have to dissolve the false ego. Otherwise, another birth in this material world, you know. So even though from a material point of view, we may be losing, but from a spiritual point, we don't, you know. So we have to learn to see things with spiritual eyes, you know, with spiritual vision. There's also a nice definition of what tolerance means. Tolerance means to patiently endure unhappiness, such as that provoked by the insults or negligence of others. So when we are insulted or neglected, these are pretty challenging things for the false ego, you know. Yes. Insulted or neglected. So patience, tolerance means that we patiently endure such unhappiness, welcoming it as an opportunity to let go of our false ego. You know? Pretty powerful. Yes. All right, let us open for questions or comments. Is there anything which you would like to discuss more? Yes. Somebody has the mic.
Hare Krishna. So I think there's a difference between defending and retaliating. So when something wrong happens to us and we retaliate towards that, that's one thing. Defending is something different than just retaliation. So I think what you're talking about when you say defending is more about retaliation, is it not?
No. I mean, there is in our scriptures, there is some allowance for defending. And that is when we are attacked by one of the 6 aggressors. Right? The aggressors being, I wrote it down here on my little piece of paper. When we are given poison, when somebody sets fire to our house, when somebody attacks us with a deadly weapon, when plunderers steal our riches, when somebody occupies our land, or when somebody kidnaps our wife. So then we are allowed to defend. Actually, it is said we are even allowed to kill that person. Maybe not according to American law. So, but in the scriptures it says that. So in these incidences, we are allowed to defend. But anything else, we should not defend.
So for example, when you lock your door, when you protect yourself from being attacked, that's defense. You're taking defensive measures to protect yourself from being taken advantage of or being attacked.
No. See, let's go back to the false ego discussion. So there, the defense is verbally, that we react to something. So when you lock the door, you know, you're not defending verbally and you're not responding to an attack. So let's stick to the topic and not get lost in some other thing there. So locking the door, we are not, you know, verbally defending. Of course, in one sense, you can say, well, in a subtle way, we also defend our false ego. It's my house here, you know, extended false ego, my family, my house, and. But no, this is not what we're talking about, the Vaishnava etiquette, not to defend. That's the topic. Let's stick to that. What else? Yes.
I did kind of have I guess it's a doubt. Sometimes when I would hear from the Leelamrita, you know, from Srila Prabhupada's Leela, Prabhupada would be like fire against people like cheating him and the devotees, or at least he will give fire to the devotees that they're being cheated. And I guess I'm wondering where it's like, you know, where we take the stand for Krishna's property.
Yes. So the Vaishnava etiquette is we don't defend ourselves. We defend others. And that includes Krishna and Guru and Krishna's property. Then we defend others. We defend Krishna. So Prabhupada, oh yes, he as we know, he was having court cases. Mumbai, Juhu, and where people tried to cheat him. Well, people did not try to cheat him, but he tried to cheat Krishna. And he, as the representative of Krishna, he was fighting them. He was not fighting for himself. Prabhupada's motive was not to prove that he is right, but he wanted to secure Krishna's property. Yeah, that's a difference. Yes. So we are meant to defend Krishna and other devotees. But there's also many incidences where Prabhupada was, inappropriately treated or something. He didn't defend. No. I mean, there's this one story, I can't remember where it was. I think it was in London when he was installing the deities there. And Prabhupada was, in anxiety and a little angry with the devotees because they were all spacing out and didn't have the right things there and so on, And then some bhakta was saying to Prabhupada, just chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada was actually doing it. He took his beads and chanted. So for himself, he could have said, oh, who are you to tell me and shut up or whatever, But he just took his beads and chanted. He didn't defend. Yes, no, for Krishna's property and Krishna we have to defend. But even there, I want to share a little story, which is also pretty powerful. It happened in Australia around the times when I joined Krishna consciousness. And in those days, we were not allowed to accept money, even donations on the streets for the books we were giving out. So the leaders were devising this plan of Monday to Friday, collecting in different ways some money. And then on the weekends, we would go out and just give the books out for free. And quite a few ended up in the bin or just left on the park bench or whatever. And afterwards, we were just going around picking them all up, cleaning them a bit and giving them out next Saturday. And it so happened, one group of devotees was going every Saturday to a certain shopping mall in Sydney. It was the same devotees. And every time this one man came and he approached the devotees, he pretended he wanted to take a book. And then the devotees gave him the book and then he ripped it up into pieces. And this story repeated itself every Saturday. The same man came, oh yes, let me have one of these books. Yes, please give me a book. And then he ripped it all up. And the story repeated quite a few times. And every time the devotees again gave him the book. And then one day, that man actually decided, I better have a look at this book. What's in it? So one day he took the book home. And guess what? He became a devotee. He became a book distributor. And he shared that what really impressed him is that the devotees tolerated his actions. The common way the ordinary way of reacting would have been to say, oh, this guy is coming again. We're not going to give him a good book. Get lost, and that would have been the ordinary way. But because the devotees were so tolerant, always giving him again a book, because he pretended that he wanted one, you know. And that at some stage, that man was thinking to himself, these guys are not ordinary people. They are saintly. Let me have a look what's inside that book. You know? So, yeah. Even in that regard, you know, tolerance is victorious. And it is purifying for others. If we react in a mood of tolerating, that can be a powerful weapon which purifies other people's hearts, you know? Yes. One thing that very often is asked, let me explain this. Sometimes people say, but when I tolerate, then all this negativity builds up in me and I get all sick or angry, or sooner or later I explode, you know, so this tolerating doesn't work for me. So let us understand that there is a difference between tolerating and suppressing. Yes. You know, when we suppress, then internally the false ego still continues to rebel and demand, you know, and the whole ego battle goes on internally, and we just put the cork on the bottle there, you know, we suppress it, but then internally it keeps on boiling up there until we explode sooner or later. So that is actually not what you call tolerance. That's not tolerating. That's simply suppressing. But true tolerance means that we let go of this internal false ego battle, you know, and that we can only do if we connect our situation with Krishna being in the picture. That we say to ourselves, what is Krishna trying to teach me here? There must be some reason that I find myself in this situation. Nothing happens by chance. There must be something I meant to learn here. So it requires faith in Krishna. We can only cultivate true tolerance if we have faith in Krishna. Understanding there must be some reason why I find myself in this situation. And another important thing to cultivate true tolerance is humility. Humble person can always tolerate, whereas a proud person will never be able to tolerate. So a humble person will say to himself, moods and approaches, then we can cultivate tolerance, right? Then we actually subdue this inner ego battle. And that's what it means to tolerate. But if we can't, you know, have that mood and approach, and we simply suppress, then internally the whole ego battle continues, you know, that we rebel, the ego rebels, and oh, it's not fair, and oh, they shouldn't have treated me like this, and oh, you know, I'm right, actually, and you know. Yeah. So yeah, it's we have to understand what it means to tolerate. It's not to just suppress. That will not do the trick. We actually have to let go of the false ego's demands. Yes.
Is it fair to draw the line between, connect the dots between the false ego and living in a mode of passion? And, you spoke of defending others. So that would be the mode of goodness. And then to transcend would be to tolerate. Is that fair? Is that a fair observation?
You must have read some of our books.
I have.
You have? Okay. Otherwise, you wouldn't come up with mode of passion and mode of goodness.
Where does ignorance fit into that with the false ego?
Well, yes, false ego comes definitely from ignorance because we don't know who we are. We identify with the body. We identify with this external situation. We don't know that we are the eternal spirit soul. So there's definitely ignorance there, and also a mode of passion. Yes. That's how false ego comes about, through the influence of mode of ignorance and mode of passion. Exactly. So, and then as we rise to the mode of goodness and we cultivate mode of goodness habits, and ways of life, and then if we additionally accept these Vaishnava etiquette rules, so then that helps us to transform our patterns of behavior, Yes. Good. Anything else? Yes.
I did want to ask too that I guess sometimes during this seminar I was kind of wondering, like, isn't the process of devotional service dissolving the false ego automatically? And I was kind of like a little bit agitated myself, that it's like,
well, nothing goes automatically. We have to consciously practice the process of Krishna consciousness, and that includes following the Vaishnava etiquette, right? Oh, yes, that's a big part of the process of Krishna consciousness. But unfortunately, we don't so often. We may not even know these subtle forms of etiquette. Yes, we don't know them. But Vaishnava etiquette is our saving grace, because that's the point. That's what I was saying yesterday to begin with. That if we can make so many endeavors to chant the holy name, the Maha Mantra, but if we don't at the same time serve according to Vaishnava etiquette and culture, then we are trapped in these ego patterns of behaviors, and then we cannot receive the benefit from chanting the holy name. That's the problem, And then we are like the elephant taking bath, throwing the dirt back on our backs there as soon as we get out of the water, and we don't get anywhere. We can chant for years and even render some service, read Prabhupada's books. But if we don't transform these false ego patterns of behaviors, we are trapped in them. Because that urge, the urge of the tongue is so strong. To talk bajalpa, which is mundane nonsense talk, or to defend. It's so strong, so strong. We have to do some internal work. Maybe, even though it's 8:30, but maybe should I quickly mention some 5 powerful practical steps? They are in the books, but just to conclude the whole session, it's actually pretty quick. So there are 5 powerful steps which really work in any situation where we want to transform some unwanted patterns of behaviors. Whether that's envy or false ego, it always works. So step number 1 is that we have to hear about the topic. That's why I like to discuss them, because we have to hear about it. And by hearing, we become more conscious of these things. If we don't hear about it, we can defend ourselves every day and we don't even realize that we are doing something which we should not do, you know. So step number 1 is we have to hear. So then hopefully after hearing, there will be a desire. Let me kick this out of my life. I have to do something about this. Right? That's step number 2. So then comes step number 3. We have to be introspective and honest. This is a very important part of spiritual practice. This introspection, this reflecting, that we look in our heart. Why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? What is my motive? What took place here in this unpleasant exchange which I just had? How did I contribute to this? Very important. Without introspection and being honest to ourselves and others, we can't get anywhere in our spiritual development. No, we just remain stagnant. So introspection and honesty. And at that step, that's where it's so important to have the help of a mentor, a coach, a counselor. I have a whole book on that topic too. Yes, that without a counselor, we cannot make advancement actually. And especially in regards to false ego, we need this well-wishing friend who tells us, you know, because we often can't see. And then, but if we have this well-wishing and more experienced friend next to us, and he can say, hey, just cool down. You went a bit overboard here. That was not the right reaction or whatever, you know, so then we can, that helps us to introspect and reflect. So then after introspection and reflection, step number 4 is we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. So that is already progress, because so many times before we were doing the wrong thing, but we didn't even realize. So now at least we catch ourselves. Oh, again, I just couldn't control my tongue. I had to say this comment. I had to defend. I had to answer back and. So we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. So now my question to you, what is step number 5? After catching yourself doing the wrong thing? Good. That's the answer. We pray to Krishna, because very often people say, well, we just don't do it again, you know. But if it was just so easy, it would be good. But no, we can tell us so many times, I'm not going to do this. But next opportunity arises, we're going to do it again. Because false ego is so subtle, so deep, deep-rooted. We've been carrying it with us for so many lifetimes. So we, out of our own strength, we actually can't free us from it. We have to invite Krishna, especially Lord Nrsingadev. with his sharp nails. Lord Nrsimhadev is the form of Krishna, half lion, half human. You heard about him? Really? So you know already quite a few things here. Yes. So Lord Nrsimhadev, he is the expert heart surgeon. We have to invite him to do the needful. And proportionally to how seriously we invite him, he responds. Yes. But our unfortunate situation is that we think this false ego will also give us some enjoyment, some juicy fruits. And that's why we are not so eager to invite Lord Nrsimhadev to pull it out of our hearts. We want to protect and defend it all the time and boost it and feed it rather than uprooting it. That's our problem. Actually, we can say Lord Nrsimhadev, he prepares our heart so we can approach Radha Krishna one day. Yeah, nice way to see it. Yes. So, and if we do these, especially last 3 steps of being introspective and honest, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, crying out to Krishna, introspection and honest, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, crying out to Krishna, sooner or later, we come to step number 6. We catch ourselves doing the right thing. It really works. I apply it myself. Yes. Sooner or later, some little daily situation comes and you will find yourself, not reacting how you used to, but all of a sudden, by Krishna's mercy, you can just let it go by. It doesn't provoke you, and you think, wow, 2 weeks before, I would have reacted differently. I would have taken the bait and responded, but no, I could just let it go by, and then you realize it works by Krishna's mercy. Don't get proud and think, oh, just see, I did it. But no, by his mercy, yes. So yes, going back to your question, the process of Krishna consciousness does do the job, but not automatically in the sense that we don't do these subtle internal work. We have to do the internal work. That's part of the process of Krishna consciousness. It's not just some external thing of just chanting our 16 rounds, reading every day 1 hour, coming to the morning program, doing a bit of service, cleaning the floor, cutting up in the kitchen. That's just all the external thing. But the internals, that's the main part of the process. So if you mean by automatically following the process, if you include the internal process, then yes. But usually people don't. Usually when they say automatically, they just refer to the externals. And they think that's it. Everything else automatically comes. But no, it doesn't. Right? You agree? No? You don't know yet. Well, read the False Ego book and then maybe it becomes more clear. Okay, so let me close on that note, and at the same time, thank you all for your wonderful association. Tomorrow I'm moving on. I'm flying to San Diego. So it was wonderful to visit you here. I had a great time. And yes, thank you for your hospitality and your eagerness to associate. Even again, so many people came on a Tuesday evening, quite amazing. Some new faces, wonderful. Yeah, so I wish you all the very, very best. And if there's anybody who would like to get some books, today is your last chance. So please don't send me an email in a week's time. Oh, can I have one false ego book? Yeah, no, then it will be difficult. So now is your chance to get whatever books you would like to have. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanande, Hare Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.